You're probably scrolling through a dozen monitor options, wondering if you'll end up spending a fortune on something that looks amazing on paper but ends up feeling like a gimmick in your living room. It's a legit worry. Big screens can dominate a space, and a curve that's too aggressive can actually make a game feel stranger than it should. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break down whether the Samsung 55-inch Odyssey Arc lives up to the hype enough to justify its price tag for you. First off, the size and the 1000 Arc curvature are the most immediate conversation starters. A 55-inch panel at 4K resolution gives you roughly 8 million pixels, which means you can actually see individual textures in a game like Cyberpunk 2077 without squinting. The 1000 Arc curve matches the natural radius of the human eye, so when you sit about a foot away, typical for a gaming chair, the screen wraps around you just enough to keep the edges in focus without forcing you to turn your head. In practice, that translates into a feeling of being inside the world rather than looking at a window. If you've ever felt cramped on a 27-inch monitor while trying to keep an eye on a radar or a map, this extra real estate can be a game changer. Now, the Odyssey Arc isn't just a big picture, it's also a hub. Samsung built a 4-input multi-view system that lets you plug in a PC, a console, a streaming stick, and even a Blu-ray player all at once and switch between them with a single remote or the on-screen menu. I tried it with a gaming PC, a PS5, and a laptop for productivity. The transition was seamless, a quick press and the screen snapped to the selected source, preserving the same curvature and color profile. That means you don't have to keep swapping HDMI cables or recalibrating settings every time you switch from a marathon gaming session to a movie night. Speaking of gaming, the specs that matter most are the 165 Hz refresh rate, 1 millisecond response time, and AMD FreeSync Premium Pro support. In real-world tests, a 165 frame per second output from a high-end RTX 4090 stayed buttery smooth, and the FreeSync implementation eliminated tearing even when the frame rate dipped into the 120,130 frames per second range. The Quantum Mini LED backlight gives you deep blacks and bright highlights, and HDR10 Plus pushes the peak brightness up to over 1000 nits in a few HDR titles. What you really notice is that explosions in Doom Eternal feel punchier, and the color gradients in racing games stay vivid without blooming around the edges, a common complaint on older VA panels. Sound is another hidden layer of immersion. Samsung's Sound Dome Tech places speakers behind the screen and uses acoustic waveguides to direct audio toward your listening position. In a dark room, the built-in speakers filled the space enough to hear directional cues in shooters without needing a headset, though they obviously can't replace a proper surround system for a full cinematic experience. The real win is the reduced clutter. You don't have to set up a separate soundbar or external speakers if you're okay with a solid, room-filling soundstage for casual play. Ergonomics are often an afterthought on these monster displays, but Samsung gave the Arc a height-adjustable stand that lets you raise or lower the screen by about 10 centimeters. That's useful because the curve can feel a little aggressive if the monitor sits too low, especially if you're using a gaming chair with a high back. The stand also tilts slightly, giving you the freedom to dial in the perfect angle without straining your neck. Keep in mind the unit weighs close to 30 kilograms, so you'll need a sturdy desk or a wall mount kit that can handle the load. It's not something you'll want to move around weekly. Who should buy this, and who should walk away? If you're a serious PC gamer who runs titles at high frame rates, or if you love flight simulators where a wide field of view really adds to the experience, this monitor is practically built for you. Content creators who edit 4K footage will also benefit from the massive screen real estate and the accurate color reproduction of Mini LED. On the other hand, if your setup is a cramped desk in a small apartment, a 55-inch curve will dominate the room and may cause glare from windows. Likewise, if you mainly play on consoles and are satisfied with 1080p or 1440p, the investment in a 4K panel and a high-end GPU may not pay off. Budget-focused shoppers should also consider that the Arc sits at the premium end of the market, and you can get a solid 27-inch 144Hz monitor for a fraction of the price. There are a few trade-offs you won't see on the spec sheet. Power consumption jumps to around 250 W under full brightness, which means a noticeable addition to your electricity bill if you leave it on for long sessions. The weight, as mentioned, makes shipping a bit of a hassle, and you'll likely need a second person to safely unpack it. The curved glass can reflect ambient light, so a darkroom environment or good window treatments